You think you're just too tight, too passive, or maybe even too unlucky. But Phil Hellmuth sees something else, something that most players ignore, and it's the reason they keep busting out of tournaments while he's racking up bracelets. You've seen him lose it on stream. He tilts, he rants, he explodes. But here's what you don't see: the patience, the discipline. Phil Hellmuth didn't win the most World Series bracelets in history by luck. He won them by knowing exactly when to fold for 4 hours straight. And today, we're going to break down 11 real lessons from Phil Hellmuth's playbook. Tip 1. Build a tight image, then weaponize it. Hellmuth starts every tournament like a rock. He folds, and folds, and folds again. Why? Because tight players get paid. When he does finally free bet, people assume he has aces. That's the trap. Phil uses this image to steal pots with garbage hands once per hour, once per level, just enough to make it believable. He's not random, he's setting a trap with his reputation. Tip 2. Trust your read, even if it means raising with nothing. Most players wait for the cards to give them permission. Phil doesn't. If he senses weakness, he strikes, regardless of what's in his hand. Sometimes he doesn't even look. He calls it instinct. You might call it madness, but it works. This isn't about being reckless. It's about recognizing those rare moments where your opponent is bluffing and having the guts to punish it. Sometimes I'll do it 5 times in an hour, sometimes not once in 4. If you can't trust your reads, don't bluff. But if you can, that's when you separate yourself from the field. Tip 3. Fire the flop, even with marginal hands. Hellmuth doesn't like giving control away. If he hits middle pair, a draw, even just 2 overcards, he's betting. Why? Because when you check, you open the door. You let someone with pocket threes take the lead. You let someone with ace-high bluff you off the best hand. Phil would rather take the initiative and make them uncomfortable, because checking lets your opponents decide the price of the hand. Sometimes, by not betting, I actually lose more money. Aggression isn't just for value, it's for protection. And the flop, that's where the war starts. Tip 4. Pick up free chips before the flop. Hellmuth doesn't just play hands, he plays situations. And one of his favorite situations, when the antes kick in. That's when pots get fat before the cards even matter. Phil looks for players on his left who fold too often. Then he opens wide, knowing he only needs 1 fold to make a profit. He calls these free chips, and he treats them like gold. But here's the key. He's not raising light from early position. He's doing it from the button, the cutoff, the blinds, places where fewer people can punish him. If you want to win no-limit tournaments, you've got to find ways to pick up chips risk-free. You won't win with cards alone. You need to win with timing, and Hellmuth's timing, it's ruthless. Tip 5. Free bet more, call less. Phil doesn't like calling raises, especially with speculative hands. He'd rather free bet with 9 deuce offsuit than call with 8-9 suited. Why? Because calling puts you in no man's land. You're chasing, you're reacting, you hit second pair and now what? You're guessing. But when you free bet, you take control. You force folds, you build fold equity, you define the hand, and with antes in play, that control becomes profit. Phil cites data showing free bets win over 70% of the time, even when your hand is garbage. But he also warns, if you free bet every hand, you lose that edge. It's not about spamming aggression, it's about selective pressure. When you're in position and your read is clean, call less, attack more. Tip 6. Don't rely on speculative hands. Most players love suited connectors. Phil Hellmuth hates them. Hands like 8-9, he avoids them, especially against big raises. Why? Because even when they hit, they get you in trouble. You flop middle pair on a scary board. You chase a draw and miss. You hit an 8 and still lose to top pair. Phil says he'd rather free bet with trash and win the pot pre-flop than call with a hand that gets him stuck post-flop. I like cutting a lot of the fat out. I like winning pots without seeing flops. If you're not confident post-flop, don't play hands that require you to be. Tighten up your range and let others make the mistakes. Tip 7. Play the long game and stick to your plan. Phil's seen it all. The player who busts the first tournament, then jumps into a side game to chase losses. The guy who blows his whole bankroll on day 1. He's been that guy. That's why he preaches discipline and structure, especially during tournament series. Before the first card is dealt, he sets a plan. What games he'll play, how much he'll spend, how he'll manage swings, and once he sets it, he sticks to it. If you want to survive this business long term, you can't just wing it. bankroll leaks kill more careers than bad beats ever will. So if you're serious, map your week, pick your spots, protect your ammo, because chips aren't your only resource, your discipline is too. Tip 8. Master the short stack, don't fear it. Most players panic when they hit 15 big blinds. Phil doesn't. He knows that with the right timing, a short stack can be a weapon. Here's the playbook. With 15 bigs or less, you're in push-fold mode. Open shoving from late position is mandatory. Re-shoving over weak opens is gold. And speculative hands? Leave them out. Phil adds his twist though. He doesn't just follow charts blindly. He looks for reads. If a player's raise feels weak, he might shove light. If they seem strong, he'll wait. Fold equity matters more than hand strength at this stage. And remember, calling off with small pairs is often a trap. Shoving with them? Fine. But calling? That's a coin flip you don't need. Short stacks aren't death sentences. They're launch pads if you use them right. Tip 9. Adjust your raise sizes to disrupt expectations. Hellmuth plays the metagame. When everyone's min-raising, he sometimes comes in with a 4x open and it throws people off. Why? Because tight players aren't supposed to raise that big, so when he does it, alarm bells go off. Players fold hands they'd normally defend, they tighten up, they hesitate, and Phil scoops the pot before the flop even hits. He taught this to two of his friends mid-tournament. They were both tight, both had chips. He told them, start opening bigger. They made it through the day. You should see the look on people's faces when you raise 4 times as a tight player. It's not just about the cards, it's about flipping the script on your image, and sometimes all it takes is a bigger raise. Tip 10. Learn by watching the best. Phil didn't become a legend by playing every hand. Sometimes he just watched. Back in the 90s, he couldn't win a limit hold'em tournament to save his life, so he did something most players never do. He skipped the event and stood on the rail. For a full day, he watched Jack Keller, one of the greats, play every hand. He studied his timing, his bet sizing, his aggression, and it clicked. Jack 3-bet every hand, not to show off, but to force folds, isolate opponents, and win pots others were scared to take. It opened a light. That's what he was doing, and it worked. Phil went from bricking limit tournaments to winning them. Not by guessing, not by grinding, by learning. If someone's crushing a game you can't crack, watch them, study them, steal from them. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Tip 11. Stay calm, but strike when the moment's right. Phil Hellmuth isn't aggressive all the time. In fact, he says some of his best sessions involve hours of folding. No ego, no impulse, just patience. But when the right spot comes, he pounces. He'll re-raise light, fire the flop, steal pots others wouldn't even fight for. That's the contrast. He doesn't need to be in every hand because he knows the ones he does play will count. If I'm reading well, I might make this move 17 times and win 17 pots. But here's the catch, when his reads are off, he dials it back. He waits for the dinner break, resets, recharges. Because to Phil, poker isn't just cards and chips, it's energy, it's flow. And the best players know when to pull back, so they're ready when the game turns. You don't need to be relentless, you need to be in control. And Phil Hellmuth, that's where he lives. You came here thinking Phil Hellmuth was just a loudmouth, just another ego with a bracelet collection. But now, you see the patience, the precision, the structure behind the chaos. From tight image traps to fearless reads. From disciplined bankroll plans to calculated aggression. You've seen the playbook. The question is, will you use it? Because if you're serious about poker, you can't just play hands. You've got to play the room. And no one plays the room like Hellmuth. But as calculated as Phil is, there's one player who breaks the game down in a completely different way. Daniel Negreanu doesn't just read your strategy, he exposes your psychology. In the next video, you'll find out why most players lose at high stakes, not because they're bad, but because they're playing the wrong game. Click to hear Daniel Negreanu's brutal truth about what's really killing your win rate and how to fix it before it's too late.